slowly but surely. And if Andrea and Abby, you can help me admit people, that would be great. Hi, everyone. As we're kind of just, thanks for being patient. We are getting a couple technical difficulties because Teams always likes to throw curveballs at us. All right, well, I think everyone's kind of getting in the room here. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I know that this was mandatory, and I appreciate whether it's your staff or board members who are attending this today. We really appreciate it because we are super excited about being able to give all of our IAMS and NAMS programs Maestro. And we really love Maestro. We're big supporters of it, and we really are so excited that you guys we're going to be able to offer this to you. Not only, obviously, yes, we will be doing our quarterly reporting on it, but also just for your own community and your own organization to be able to use all of the features that Maestro has to offer. So really today is going to be focusing on Travis kind of doing just an overview of the software, and he'll kind of go into what that can look like. I will say, obviously, we'll maybe have some time at the end for questions, but if your question is related specifically to our reporting process, so our new reporting process that we're going to have, if you can hold those questions, we're going to be actually sending out an email, I think next week sometime, with some more information, and then we'll be here via email, phone. You guys know how to reach us for our reporting. So I know that that's going to be a new thing, and I know many of you have questions about that, but really today we want to use the time with Travis to talk specifically about the software and your questions that might come up with that. And we'll obviously still be able to have access to Travis as we get this implemented, and we'll kind of talk through what that's going to look like. But really today, we just kind of wanted to get you all comfortable being able to see kind of what this software has to offer. So that being said, I obviously want to introduce Travis Brown. He is the head. What is your official title actually, Travis? I don't know if I know it.
Head janitor.
I love it.
Really, technically my title is Chief Business Development Officer.
Okay. Yeah. So the Chief Business Development Officer at Maestro. And he's obviously super knowledgeable, all that Maestro has to offer. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, Travis, to get us started.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate everybody's time being a part of this, and super excited to work with you. We love working with states, getting the reporting stuff. It's fun. I'm a geek. I am a Main Streeter. For those of you who don't know me, I spent 7-ish years as the executive director here in Quincy, Illinois. And that's kind of how Maestro started. I was tired of systems that didn't work, everything in 27,000 places, things just not being easy. And we wanted to make a system that made it easier. It's actually how we got the name Maestro, is we're trying to make directing easier. And that was kind of the kind of mission statement behind it. And then that led us to, Maestros like conductors. And so that's how we got our name. But really, we're here to walk through the system, but the system is really there to make your lives easier. It's to put everything in one spot and to give you the ability to share that access with the team, so that especially those of you who were like me, where you're a staff of one, but we were very volunteer dependent, we can include as many people at the right level of access as we need, and make sure that it's not all on one person's shoulders to do all of this stuff, because Main Street is ever changing. If you were to start at A and get to Z, by the time you've gotten to M, something has already changed. And so we want to make sure lots of people have access so that the data stays as up to date as possible. And the more you start using Maestro, the easier it is, and I will say easier it is to do the reports. Really, if you're using Maestro on a pretty regular basis, chances are you may not have to do anything other than click a button, and you can get the Indiana Main Street team all the data they need for their report. And that's kind of the goal behind this, right? Is make it easy. Let's make one click of a button. I don't have to touch anything else. Wouldn't that be great? So I want to walk through Maestro today. I also want to talk about the data and how we get it, because as we start onboarding everybody, that's going to be a really big piece. And some of you may want to start working on some of those things now if you don't have it. So just a quick overview of Maestro. I'm going to start with our contacts because this really is kind of how we built Maestro. It kind of lays everything out. Anytime we're talking about a profile, and for us, a profile is going to be a contact, a business, or a property. Anytime we're looking at a profile, upper left-hand corner is always going to be that basic contact information. That's our who, what, when, where, why. And that, for the most part, is going to be what people can see if they've got the right level of access. When they say contact information, this, we'll call it salmon colored box. That's the information they see, where everything else is kind of blacked out. When we come down, we've got user access. Again, I mentioned being able to share this with your team. We actually have 6 different user tiers. So you get to put people in at a level that makes sense for you. You may have some people that are admins that need to be able to read and edit everything. You may have other people that it's best if they're behind glass, right? Take a look but not touch approach. You can put them there. All the way down to people that, hey, I just need you to be able to log in, tell me you got something done and how long it took you and when you did it. We can have that level as well. So we've got a whole lot of different levels of access based around whatever that person's doing with and for your organization. And that can always be edited based on the organization's needs, right? Somebody starts as a volunteer, they work their way up, they're on a committee, eventually they're on the board, then maybe they become president. That level of access isn't going to stay the same during their kind of lifespan as a volunteer. And so it can adjust based on, their current role. We scroll down a little bit further and we get to the properties and the businesses. And again, this is where, being the database, everything kind of gets linked. And that's really important because, again, we want to be able to jump to whatever's happening. And we want to be able to see that Travis here owns this property, but he owns these businesses. Or he's managing this one business, but he owns these 2. And so we want to make sure that we're getting all that information in. Our middle column is really dealing around our work plans, right? This is the what are you doing for me column. So you've got, all of the tasks that have been assigned to a particular person, all of the work plans or the projects that they are on as a whole. And then every time hours get logged, that gets tracked in the system as well, whether that's them coming in and saying, I did this task on Tuesday and here's how long it took, or whether that's somebody logging hours saying, Sue was at a meeting for 75 minutes and it was on Thursday and it was for XYZ. We've got a bunch of different ways to get that data into the system, everything from bulk editing to them putting it in. But anytime that hours are logged for a particular person, that's going to get saved on their profile. What that does then is it allows us to come back later and pull reports based on all of that information, which is, again, kind of the impetus behind Indiana, doing this as a state, is that reporting piece. And so we're going to carry that all the way through to the community level, and that's going to be a really important tool as we get a little bit further down the road this morning. Our right-hand column is really where this starts to turn into a CRM. So you've got contact reports, you've got notes, and you've got these things that, for my money, are really the magic behind Maestro. We call them involvements. You could really think of these as custom fields or custom tags. Anytime you've got a spreadsheet, chances are we can put that information in as an involvement. So all of your sponsors, all of your volunteers, all of your food vendors, all of your farmers market vendors. We've got some communities that are tracking farmers market vendors, not just for attendance, but what they grow, so that if they get a call saying, hey, who was here on Saturday, they can pull up a list of the vendors that showed up on Saturday. But they can also pull up a list of vendors that serve strawberries or sell tomatoes or, whatever the case may be. They've got those tags put on those profiles. So it makes it very, very easy to pull that information and to be able to then use that for whatever your needs are. Again, we can attach files and all that good stuff. That's where we get into pictures, and when we get into properties and businesses, logos and things like that. So when we jump to a business, again, looking at the business as a whole, basic contact information, right? Our social links, our phone number, all of that good jazz. We get contacts, so you can have multiple contacts associated with a business. We've got our hours of operation, you've got your involvements, but we start to collect things that are really important from that reinvestment statistic standpoint. So employee records, open dates, close dates, relocated dates. So this way we can start to track who's opening in the district, who's closed in the district in the last quarter, who's, got an employee change, and we start to build our reports basically just by entering in that information. It becomes super simple to pull that information back out. So it makes it very easy. We can also track a business through business locations. And this is nice because we have two different ways of doing this. One of those ways is kind of like what you see here. I've got a business, they moved out of A into B. Really, really helpful when you're bringing on new volunteers or new staff members to be able to say, oh yeah, they were the building, or they were the property or the business, I'm sorry, that used to be in the bank building. I don't know where the bank building is, but I can go to that business and see where they used to be. Or it's, oh, I can't remember the name of that business, but they're in the old theater. Well, I could go to the theater and see what business was there, or what business used to be there. So it kind of builds this institutional or historical knowledge when we do it this way. The other thing that it does, though, is it allows us to put a business in multiple locations at the same time. Banks are a really good example of this. You may have, just in your district, you may have a bank that has 1 to 3, sometimes 4 branches just within your downtown. You don't really want to count that as a second or third or fourth business, but you also want to count that your occupancy is accurate. And you want, I need to be able to say this business is in this property. Travis's World of Spreadsheets, which is how I lived before Maestro, I counted the business multiple times because I didn't have a better way of going about it. With Maestro, I can come in, put the business in, have it be in multiple locations, and give me both a very accurate occupancy count and a very accurate business listing. So it makes it really easy to just kind of get a complete, accurate picture of what your district is. When we jump to a property, again, you can see everything, all of this good stuff, and all of this is searchable as well. So if we go to 327 South 8th, let's say, as long as we have 3 characters in, everything's going to come up. So we can see that Barb owns this property. We've got our land usage and our zoning and our square footage and all that. Again, we're talking about our reinvestment stats though, right? And so we also track sale dates and we track property improvements. So those are probably the 2 biggest ways that private dollars get invested into our downtown. And so we've got mechanisms in place on those properties to be able to track that, record that information, and keep that so that when we get to our reports, it's very clear that we've got X dollars in public compared to Y dollars in private. And it really gives us a pretty good sense of what this property is doing as well. Obviously, we've got involvements, and kind of unlike involvements in businesses and contacts, which tend to focus around promotion and organization, when we get into properties, we really kind of hit the other 2 points, right? We hit design and we hit economic vitality. Really important from an economic vitality standpoint to have, things like, does it have a commercial kitchen? Does it have an elevator or a loading dock or 3-phase power, or whatever the people that are coming to you at your office and saying, I'm looking for a space that has blank. We can start to track that by putting in these involvements and then being able to pull properties that are vacant that have those specific requirements that that person's looking for. Same thing with design. really great way to track architectural style, building condition, all of the stuff that you kind of expect that your design committee is probably going to want to have. If you've got that information, it's a really great way to store that and then, be able to use that for things down the road. The nice part, again, we can put businesses in a property. We can also put units inside a property. So again, Barb owns this unit or this building. In Travis's world of spreadsheets, it really looked like Travis owned or Barb owned 12 units, 12 properties, I'm sorry. Barb owns one property that has 12 units. So we can put those units inside the property, but then I can also attach businesses directly to any non-residential unit. So anything that's commercial, I can now attach a business directly to. What that does is it allows me to search for vacant buildings, but also search for vacant properties, vacant units, vacant whatever, and really kind of get a very, very accurate occupancy rate based on the total number of units. Our occupancy rate, because we always get this question, occupancy rate is not based around square footage in Maestro. Our occupancy rate is based around commercial units within Maestro. Excuse me. So normally I pause for questions. With this many people, I'm going to blow right through. We're going to go through work plans and then reporting, and then we'll wrap up with questions. So if you've got any, make sure you write them down. But that's kind of the quick overview on our profiles. When we jump to the work plans, and again, this will probably be the thing that gets put in for you the last. Now, you're coming on at a really good time because you guys are coming on, we're getting into that fourth quarter, getting close to it. Being able to hit the ground running in January and say, okay, all of our 2023 work plans we want to have in the system, that gets really, really helpful because now you can start, the year off and get everybody up and running. The first things first, we're going to get contact business properties in. And then people start these work plans and then they get better year after year. So the first thing you're going to put in all of the basic contact information again. We're going to put in a description, who's on the committee, when is it, if it's tied to a specific event. We obviously want to put those date or dates. And then we get into the real fun stuff, which is the actual tasks. So for every task, we can define that task. Here's what needs to be done. We can assign it to a person or a group of people. We can give it a due date, give it a budget, and put in a note. And so if I can find a good note example. So like here, we're going to have t-shirts. And Brian and Jill are going to be in charge of this, right? So we've said, hey, Brian and Jill, you guys have to have t-shirts. You've got to order them by August 3rd. You've got $500 to work with. But here's who we order them from, and here's the sizes and quantities. When we start to put that level of detail in, what that does is it really empowers Brian and Jill to be able to go and to do that task, right? If they've never done this before, they're going to have a lot of questions. Well, where do I get them from? How much, what did we do last year? What sizes, what quantities, all that. When we can start to plug that information in, now even people that didn't do this last year have the information they need to be empowered to go and to do that task. So let's say, Jim here, he got his reminders done. He came in, he clicks the little stopwatch and he says, yep, this only took me 15 minutes. So a quarter of an hour. And I was really bad about my reporting. I actually did it August 25th. And you can mark that task as complete, and it's going to save, and that's going to drop down. Now, the nice part is you see we've got something that's orange here and something that's red. When we assign these tasks to folks, as long as they've got their notifications turned on, they're going to get an email. 2 weeks before that task is due, it's going to change from gray to orange, and that's when they get a second email. Hey, don't forget, you've got this task due. Life goes by, Travis forgets all about it, and now all of a sudden, the day that that task is due, it's going to turn to red. And now they're going to get an email every day until that task is marked as complete. Now, that email is going to have the link that they can call, or they can click through, go in, mark that task that got complete. What we find though is, in addition to that, we get a lot of directors that say, people will call me and say, Travis, I got this task done. I don't remember how to get logged in. Can you please make these emails stop? Well, sure, I'd be happy to. I can come in, ask you, when did you do that? Oh, last week? Okay, well, how long did it take? Oh, an hour? Okay, great. Well, now I'm marking that time. It's complete. They're getting time logged. I'm getting something done. And I didn't have to be the one constantly hounding them, right? The other nice part is, because we're using a system that everybody's got access to, our team can help hold each other accountable. So we don't have to wait until that meeting 2 weeks before to find out that our list looks like this with a whole bunch of red stuff on it, because everybody's got access to this and we don't let things fall through the cracks as much. Makes it a lot easier to, again, be able to kind of keep everybody on the same page. The other piece that we've got that I'm excited about, and we've had this for about a year now and really seen some great success with it, and that's our volunteer opportunities. So this works very similar to Sign Up Genius. You come in, say, here's the volunteer, or here's when I need volunteers. Here's all of the shifts. And then for each shift, here's the jobs that I need done, right? So I need, 15 people for my setup crew. For security, I only need a few people. For my drink stands, I need, 10 people for my early shift. By the time we get down to the late shift, I need a few more people because we're going to have a bigger crowd. You put all of that in, and then you get a link that now I can put this link on my website, my social media, my email, and I can send anybody I want to this link. They can get signed up. All they have to do is put in their name, their email, and then they're instantly added to my database if they're not already in there, but that spot is saved. Now, the really nice part is, after the event, right, we've got 100 and some odd volunteer spots just in this little scenario here. I come in and I say, Jim wasn't here and Bob wasn't here, and we take those two out. Everybody else, I can attach these volunteer hours, and now all 15 of these folks have 2 hours saved to their profile. So again, it's putting all of that information into the system in bulk for us so that it's easy to pull back out when we need to access that information. And that gets us to the reporting piece, because the reporting is a really key aspect to Maestro. We actually have just upgraded this year, and we're really excited about the new opportunities that reside now within our reporting. So you've got our quick reports. So if you want to find out net new businesses, or you needed a list of all your property owners or all your business owners, any of that kind of stuff, you can kind of one click and get there. But let's say you wanted to run a new report and you wanted to see for this year. Let's just say you wanted to get all of your reinvestment statistics, right? So all of these fun things, occupancy rate, total properties, number of events held, new businesses, all of it. We're going to run this report, and it runs in real time. So it takes just a second, and then we get all of the details, right? And so we can come in and see, hey, we've had 5 new businesses. What are those? Okay, great. We can see when they opened. And we had 2 businesses close. When were those? Okay, we can see when those were. Now from here, I can save this as a PDF. I can save this report so I can always come back to it. But now with our new reporting, I can actually add filters. So maybe I wanted to know, what does this look like for my properties on Main Street? So pay attention to some of these numbers, like employee changes and full-time employees, because now when we run this report, everything changes, right? So now we can see, hey, we've lost 20 employees just on Main Street. We've got 75 active businesses instead of however many we had before. All of these numbers now change based on this particular filter. And so again, gives you a lot more flexibility to pull out the information that's relevant and timely for your district to be able to say, okay, here's what I need. And now you can download this as a CSV. We can save this as a PDF. We can get whatever we need to share that information with somebody else. And when we download this as a PDF, let's just do that real quick. You know, it's got your logo that's branded. Again, it makes it really easy to ship this off to city council members or grants or whomever you need based on whatever filter you're searching for. The other thing we can do within our new reporting, so we got rid of our investment statistics. Let's just say we wanted to get a list of businesses. And I'm going to come down and say, I want all businesses. Great. We will click run. This is going to give me my list of all businesses. So I've got 711 businesses. This is going to spit that out as a CSV, or I can save this report. Now, if I come down here to this include filtered objects box, let's say I click businesses or contacts and properties in addition to my businesses. What this is going to do is it's going to give me every contact and every property that's associated with any business in my downtown. So theoretically, this is probably going to have almost every property and most of my contacts, because now those folks are tied to a business. So puts everything in one file for me. Makes it really easy to, again, generate lists and get exactly what I need when I need it. So that is the very broad strokes of Maestro. I want to talk real quick before we open this up for questions about how the onboarding process is going to work, some of the training stuff, and most importantly, where you can start pulling your data from so that when we get the green light to throw everything in, that we're ready for that. So the first thing, the onboarding process. So here in a couple of weeks, you guys will all be given a link to sign up. It'll be something like signup/maestro.indiana or something like that, right? You guys will have a link that you will go through to get signed up if you haven't already. Once you've done that, as part of the sign up process, it will ask you for a card. That's just to verify the account. That card will not be charged. This is all going to get taken care of through Indiana Main Street, but it does ask for that. So I want to make sure everybody's aware. After that, you'll start getting emails from us with links to the training materials, all that good stuff as well. Then we start actually loading the data in, and that's where, you know, it's really important to kind of start gathering the stuff now. Hopefully everybody's got a pretty detailed business listing. If you don't, that's probably a pretty good place to start. The other place to start is property listings. And this is one that sometimes I think we overlook because we don't worry about vacancies or things like that. But your county clerk will always have a good property directory for you. They may give you more than your district, and you may have to filter down and sort just to get your properties. But since they're the ones that are collecting the taxes, they're really good about keeping track of who owns what property and what properties are there. So that's a really good place to start, especially to get property owner lists. A lot of times we think, oh, this business must own this property, and that turns out to not be the case. And so getting that information from your county clerk, doing your business directory, and then for the contacts, again, if you've got a contact for every business, wonderful. If you don't, build towards that, right? Start with your businesses, start with your property, and build towards that. The bare minimum, I would say, is put in your current volunteers, your board, your committees. If you've got that, you're in a good starting point, especially if you don't know that Sue goes with the salon and Tim goes with the barber shop and all that. If you don't have that connection yet, that's okay, because Maestro's there so that as you're going around and as you're updating things, you've got a place to put that information. We do have an app that makes it really easy to edit on the go and all of that good stuff. And we'll get into all of that as we work through this onboarding process and the training. Which brings me to the last point that I want to just point out now so that everybody can kind of, especially if you're like me and you can't really, exhibit any patience whatsoever anytime. We've got this page on our website, maestrocm.com/learning. And this has all of the onboarding videos that are the more in-depth. The 101 really is almost exclusively how do you set up the system, right? It talks about getting information in, creating the involvements, and doing all of that kind of stuff. 201 is really work plans and kind of day-to-day, how are we using this? And then 301 is pulling reports and getting things back out of the system. If you need little refreshers, you've got tutorials, and then we do town halls and other things that you'll become familiar with as we go along, just kind of other training opportunities, and those are all on there as well. Now, if you're a more tactile learner, we've got a user manual, we've got an onboarding checklist, so especially for everybody in Indiana Main Street, as you're going through this, if it wants to cooperate, going through and downloading this and going, okay, do I have all of these things? Okay, great. This is a really good place to start. The other question that I know I'm going to get from you guys is, what if we're already a Maestro community? If you're already a Maestro community, once we get all the bells or I's dotted, T's crossed, and everything's rocking and rolling, we will get you guys put under the Indiana Main Street account, and you don't have to go through the sign up process and all that. You don't have to reload data and all that. We're just going to basically put you under their umbrella. So you should be good to go and not really notice any changes, except we're not going to send you a bill every month. So with that, I know I gave you guys a whole lot of information in a very short amount of time. I am positive I missed some things along the way. So if somebody has questions or you want to talk about anything, we'll get this opened up. I'm going to end with my soapbox. Please, please, please take the reporting part of this seriously. I come from Illinois. If anybody's been around Main Street even a few years, you know that we've got some issues over on our side of the border. And really, I've been around Main Street for over a decade now. We are on our third iteration of Illinois Main Street. We've been completely shuttered twice in the last 10 years. And I am 100% convinced that at least one of those times was completely preventable. But too many of my colleagues weren't putting in the reporting. And so when money got tight as a state, we couldn't justify our own existence, even though Main Street was a really powerful economic driver and something that was really generating a lot more funds than we were taking from the state. But they couldn't prove that because too many of my colleagues across the state were not submitting their reports. And so the numbers didn't look realistic, and they looked very bad. And so we lost a lot of services and we lost a lot of time. And it, as much as we loved our state program, you really understand how valuable what it is Abby and them do at the state level when they're not there. I got to tell you, it makes a huge difference, even to the local community. So please, 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 even though it may seem like a unwelcome nuisance some days, let's just be honest, it is absolutely critical to both the local program and the state program that they have that information so that they can continue to justify their existence to provide you the services that you want in your community. And hopefully you start using Maestro on a regular basis. Again, click that button for report for this quarter, ship that off to the fine folks there in Bloomington, or no, you guys are in Indianapolis. And then you don't have to touch it again. So it makes it really, really easy, right? That's what we're here for, is making directing easier. So with that, what questions do you have?
Yeah, and I will say, everyone, you can submit questions into the chat. So it looks like we already have one from Austin. So she asked about, can you talk a little bit more about donor tracking and donor retention? Will that have a place on Maestro to be tracked?
Oh, yes. Okay, so we do have a donor thing. You've probably seen the little wallet over here, and we've got donations. I will tell you, I don't love this section of our software. It really, and the way we work with donors and sponsorship stuff is really almost on a community by community basis. If you're coming from something like a Little Green Light or something like that, where it's invoicing and doing all that, that's not Maestro. Tracking, being able to generate reports of who's due, all that, absolutely 100%. We just don't do the invoicing piece and create all of those nice little templated like invoices and forms and all that. And the reason I say we do community by community, some of our communities choose to use this donor system where I can come in and see, you know, the Bank of Springfield gave X amount of dollars and it was received, and we have recurring donations and all that. I would tell you that's probably about 20 to 25% of our communities use this section. Most of our communities actually do that through the involvements because it's not campaign based, it's sponsorships and things like that. And those tend to flow a little easier in the involvements. So during this onboarding process, that's where we work with each community to just kind of figure out what needs you have. We have really tried to build this software in a way that is pretty flexible. We didn't want to paint anybody into a corner or make it so that you had to use our software in a specific way. So we have a lot of options to do things. And that's where those conversations during that onboarding process come in so that everybody kind of has something that fits the way their organization works. That's probably a long-winded way of saying, man.
What other questions? Okay. Austin had a follow-up. So she asked about, is this donation section integrated with anything like QuickBooks or acting more of as a placeholder that we manually record donations and sponsors?
It is, and again, this is where the involvements come in. You cannot import to donations, but you can import to involvements. And so that's typically, again, where if you're putting things into QuickBooks and you just want to do a quick export and import, it can be done a lot easier if those are involvements. It doesn't integrate with QuickBooks, and I'll be honest, that is incredibly intentional. Anytime you've got a software like this that integrates with QuickBooks, the development hurdle is pretty substantial because you're touching people's money at that point, and you cannot get that wrong ever, period, under no circumstances. And so we have chosen very intentionally to develop in other avenues and other paths, rather than basically shutting down development for a year to 18 months to have that QuickBooks integration. We are a smaller staff right now. We've got one programmer. And so we didn't want to shut off some of the other things like reporting. We've got some things on the horizon for work plans and some other things that I think are a bigger bang for our buck than the QuickBooks integration. But it's on a list and eventually it's coming. It probably won't be in 2022. Actually, I can promise it won't be in 2022. Probably won't be in 2023, again, just because we've got some other things on that list. But again, knowing how to, I don't want to say do a workaround, but again, being able to import to involvements, it's a really quick import export to do that as a manual thing.
What other questions? I'm not seeing any in the chat right at this minute. So Austin said thank you for that. And she also asked, can we text or email volunteers or contacts per event? So for example, can we text out to our farmers market volunteers, reminding them of their upcoming commitments and volunteer?
Another excellent question. That is coming faster than the QuickBooks. Now, having said that, if you already use a Constant Contact or a MailChimp, being able to generate a list in Maestro and send it to your Constant Contact or MailChimp exists today. So if somebody signs up for, through the volunteer, it went away, the volunteer opportunities, right? Somebody signed up for a volunteer shift. You can generate a list of everybody that signed up for those volunteer shifts, create a list, send that to MailChimp or Constant Contact, and fire off the email with all of that information. If you're in, say, Travis's email or Travis, and you're looking and you wanted to just click, this will open your default mail browser. So one-on-one, that's pretty easy. I'm not going to do that because then all of my email will start opening up, and you don't need to see how many hundreds of emails have come since we've been on this little call. So yes, that is doable. The direct integration, I don't have to go to another system. That's coming. The text messaging is something we've really been looking at lately. Finding the right thing to integrate with that won't cost everybody an arm and a leg is kind of the research that we're in now. Definitely something, though, that is on the list. We do have an intra system messaging system, but I will be honest and tell you that probably less than 10% of our communities actually use it, because most people, you have to have a Maestro account to be able to access that. And there's a lot of folks that they want to communicate with that don't have access to Maestro.
Yeah, and in the meantime, if I know that we have a few different communities that use different types of text and email marketing, if you guys have any questions or need suggestions about that, feel free to reach out to us and we can give suggestions in the meantime.
And if you really love yours and want to see it integrated with Maestro, send it to me because we're in the research stage.
Yes, for sure. Yes. Who else? Kayla, I know you had your hand raised, so if you want to pop your question in the chat, that would be great. I don't know if that was an accident or intentional, but and one thing I want to make note of too is that I do know a few of you have mentioned to us about that you do use a different CRM right now, and you're just, so just what we will at this point say about that is, obviously we would love for you to use all of the features of Maestro, because as Travis said, we really think it's built for Main Street. It's a really, really helpful system, but ultimately you're going to have to use this no matter what for reporting. So that, that's just something you need to think about as we go through the onboarding process soon, is just that you will have to learn how to utilize this and keep it updated for that reporting. And again, we'll have dates and timeline as we kind of are getting there. We're getting everything onboarded for that. So we'll be able to answer more questions later on down the road, but just wanted to make mention of that. And then Austin, you're asking, will we pull our annual work plans and annual report info from Maestro, or will there be an extra step where we download specific info to answer the report's questions? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. Just view pull our annual work plans. So I believe in Abby Huff, if you're listening, or if you're on, I believe that we will pull them. Is that correct? Or will we have them download separately?
Yeah, so they'll do all their reporting within Maestro going forward. We still have to work with Travis on what that looks like. The first time you'll do reporting in Maestro will be April 15th of 2023, and that will be for Q1 reporting of 2023. So no more grants management system. It will all go through Maestro. Reporting for this year, for 2022, you'll get an email next week on more information on that, but it'll be a Dropbox link for your stuff, but that more information to come soon.
Thank you, Abby. Appreciate that. Cool. Yeah, no problem, Austin. Thank you for your questions. Who else? Any questions about the software? I know, again, Travis, thank you for sharing all the link to the other resources you have on your website, because I know you're probably all taking it in right now. It'll take time. Obviously, I think with these kinds of things, it's also how you learn to use it is just by using it and by jumping in and getting used to the system. And that takes time for you and also for your board members or committee members who might be using this. So, so it'll take time, but obviously right now we have Travis. So if you have any questions, please send them in the chat.
I have been getting a couple emails that people don't have access to the chat. So if you have something, feel free to email it and we'll get those questions answered as well.
Yes, thanks, Abby. That's strange. Oh. Okay. Well, Travis, anything left on your end? And then obviously we can forward you any questions we get.
I was gonna say that, I mean, my email, let me go back here and highlight it. This is my primary email here, travis@maestrocm.com. You can always email me, call me, our number's on our contact page. We really want to make sure that this transition goes well. You guys will be the 4th or 5th state that we're onboarding, and it's a lot of fun to work with larger groups rather than 1 or 2 communities at a time, because everybody's kind of in the same boat together, and we can kind of do things collaboratively. But really, we're around for whatever you all need. I know at some point we will probably make a visit to the Hoosier State and see you all in person. But we really do want to make sure that this process goes well and that everybody's kind of up to speed by the end of December. I know your first report won't be due until April, as Abby just said, but if you've got everything in place and you're kind of familiar and ready to go by the end of the year, what that will do is we'll make that first quarter a lot easier than if you're trying to put in a bunch of historical stuff, get your current stuff in, and do the reporting stuff. Again, we're not looking for this to be extra for you. We're looking for this to actually help you. And so we don't want to create more stress by waiting until, March 15th to put everything in the system. So just kind of tentatively look at your schedules. I know things with the holidays can get a little nuts, but the more we're doing now, little by little, to get to the point where by January 1, you're hitting the ground running, the better.
Great. Yeah, and I will send a follow-up email to everyone. I might just go ahead and attach that checklist because I think that was super helpful. And just as we're kind of, like Travis said, getting all those things prepped. And then again, you'll hear more from us on details about reporting, some of those things. And we also recorded this. So thank you for those coming live. I just wanted you to be able, we wanted you to be able to be here to ask questions and kind of be able to in real time talk with Travis if you needed. But again, if you can't have access to the chat, send us questions. We'll make sure we get those answered, and I'll also get the recording to you. That way you can go back and watch it if you need to as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and close since I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you everyone for being here. Travis, thank you. We're really excited as well to get this implemented. I think it'll be really, really helpful. So everyone have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.